Hey everybody, I'm back inside the same room I was in last night when I was recording. Uh, I don't know what date, well, I know it's Thursday, I'm not sure the date, October 10th maybe, about 10:30 in the evening or so. And another emotionally exhausting day. And our mission here for the Curry family comes to an end as we start to head back tomorrow because we have to. I'd actually like to stay here longer because they're going to need a lot of help for a long time, but have to get back to things we have to take care of at home, like working and stuff. Um, I think my main thoughts are, or my main takeaways this week for y'all would be faith, hope, and love, and especially faith in Jesus. Despite the devastation that we have seen with our own eyes and listened to the stories of people almost countless times now of things that have happened, faith is strong in this community and they have come together, and it's given me some real hope, not only for this community but for America, as many of us are divided right now. When tragedy strikes, that's when the real colors show, and it has been happening here in a way like no other. There is no government agency here doing anything. I'm not sure if there ever will be. It's the people who are doing this. It's the Christ followers that are doing this. It's the whole community coming together. In some ways, it's kind of like a barter system even now. I mean, it's unbelievable. I know that many of you want to hear stories of people. I have a couple interviews that I will be uploading later with a couple pastors. I spoke to a lot of I don't want to call them hurricane victims because they're making it. They're surviving. Hurricane survivors is what I call them, because they don't have a victim mentality. They're just working their way out some ways. Some still literally working their way out. 14 days today. It's been 2 weeks today, and the devastation is still very clear. But since I don't record those people unless they are okay with it, sometimes it's just not the right time to ask. But I will try and relay them. I'm not going to use real names. But I talked to a couple today that this was their first time out because they had been trying to take care of everything at home. They used a hand saw to cut the trees out of their way, even though their driveway no longer exists, and they basically have to park on I don't know, on an embankment, I guess, and then walk to their house because the driveway is gone. They relayed to me the story of, it was a husband and wife, and the husband had come back from a long trip and he was actually asleep at night, that night that the storm hit, but his wife was up, and his wife saw one of her tomato plants tip over in one of those like 5-gallon buckets, and so she decided she was going to go turn it right side up because she wanted to make sure her plants were okay. As she was doing that, she started to see the ground come out from underneath of their house, and she ran over to where they have some trees kind of in the woods away from the house because she thought it was going to go in. And apparently her husband then came out to see what was happening, and she came over to him, and right as she came over to him, all of the pine trees that were there literally fell at that moment to right where she had been previously. It obviously didn't get her, but it was another miracle, which I've just seen tons of this week. So their house didn't fall in. Their neighbor was not as fortunate. Their neighbor lost their house, but he's okay. He's alive. Um, I was praying with this same couple because I said, what can I pray for you for? Because I mean, despite the obvious, right? You've lost everything. You still have no power. You still have no water. You don't know when it's going to come back. I think in some cases you don't know if it's going to come back. And it really struck me. The one guy said, um, I'm dealing with hatred. I said, oh, tell me more about that. And he said, we've gone and helped people. They didn't help us back. There's people we know, they didn't help us. And he's like, there's some people I know I can't do it. And there's some people that just won't for whatever reason. He's just dealing with hatred. So one of the things that we prayed for right then is that, God would show up and be able to, help him resolve some of that. And I even gave him my story, my family story of how we were called to go down there. I basically said, God sent us, which is true. The Holy Spirit just said, go, and we went. It was a crazy thing. And it wasn't, but I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes after we were praying, and this woman walks up to them, and she had some very loose connection to this husband and wife from, I don't know, forever ago. And she said, hey, I've got power and I've got water. Why don't you go ahead and come to my house and you can take a hot shower and you can get cleaned up and you can get what you need. I mean, this was just minutes after we were praying this. It was just unbelievable. It's mind-blowing. This couple didn't have a shower, I think, until yesterday. No, it must have been, well, maybe they had gotten out yesterday for the first time. Or maybe it was today, I don't know. Everything runs together after a while here, but they had gotten a shower at Walmart, so shout out to Walmart for being able to get that showers to people. But they still have no water or electricity. They think their house is going to be okay. But then no cell service. Like, cell service is still spotty down here. Today we mounted the Starlink Mini on the truck so that we could have service wherever we went. And we went back into the hills today where people can't really get to, and we delivered some things. And we needed satellite. There's just no cell phone service out there, just absolutely nothing. But time after time, we watch God show up. Yesterday, as some of my new friends here were delivering a new generator to a widow, an 88-year-old widow who has eyesight similar to mine and also can't hear so well. They couldn't get off the truck because it's 2 older gentlemen. And right when they needed help to get off the truck, these 3 guys pulled in and they said, hey, God told us to stop. What do you guys need something? And they helped them get this generator off the truck. Well, those 3 guys then told my friends about a place called Neighbors Feeding Neighbors. So today we went out to that same widow, and first thing we did in the morning was fill up her gas tank, or her generator, with gas. We got a whole bunch of gas, as much as we could get, filled it up. And then we did a welfare check. Well, I'll skip over the welfare check, but anyways, these 3 guys had told us about Neighbors Feeding Neighbors, and so we thought, well, maybe they have some more gas, because we had some empty cans and we wanted to fill them up so we could go get more generators filled for people. So we then went to this Neighbors Feeding Neighbors, which is kind of like another distribution center, and met up with a pastor there, just because these 3 guys just randomly, I mean, doing air quotes, randomly stopped to fill up this generator for to help get the generator off yesterday. And so we show up at this place and like, well, we don't have any fuel, but he's like, I know a guy who knows people who need stuff, which is what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to get to the outskirts where people still aren't getting to. So he called another pastor friend of his, and name was Pastor Danny, and you'll see an interview with him later. Actually, you'll see an interview with both these pastors later. I'll be posting once I get this up. And we waited about an hour for Pastor Danny. Pastor Danny took us back to where his church was. They needed gas and they needed propane because and we were out in the middle of nowhere in this church, and they're trying to keep generators going, and they're trying to keep people having heat because like tonight I think there's a freeze warning tonight, I think is what it is. So it's getting cold. It's getting cold down here, and it's going to get even colder. So up in these mountains, they said it'll get down to like minus 25 in the winter. So anyways, we delivered all this stuff to him, which he didn't even know us before today. We didn't know him before today. And he was just extremely grateful. And he was telling us, hey, we were like, what could you use? And it's like, we got people's homes who don't have heat, and it's getting cold, and we got a lot of elderly people who can't get out and don't have heat. So we went and we went to First Baptist. There's a bigger kind of center here, and just unbelievable. We found first of all a few generators for people who had CPAP machines that had come to this church, and then we were able to fill up with some more gas. And I got to tell you, I was standing there, and it looked like we're in a third world country. It's unbelievable what it's like down here. There are helicopters going over, generators when you hear them, and there's just piles of supplies, and it's kind of just, it's difficult to explain unless you've experienced it. So anyways, we had to make a few more supply trips, and we came back to this place because earlier they didn't have any generators that we could take with us. They didn't have any heaters that we could take with us. We came back, and there were just randomly heaters there. And not only that, but because it was getting cold tonight, they had taken off the limit. I guess earlier when they got them, they were limiting to 2 per person. And so they said, no, you can take more than that. So we took a couple, because we know the people need them here at this church, and we know the people need them at the other church. We also got kerosene, they're kerosene heaters. So we also got kerosene cans, or the blue cans, like gas cans, but blue. But they didn't have any kerosene. So then we had to go and try and find kerosene, which was a challenge in itself. We went to 4 different gas stations, and none of them had any. Finally, we stopped at this last gas station, and we needed to get, we had basically the math worked out. We needed $100 worth of kerosene in order to get these things filled up so that people could use them. And I'm like, okay. So I went inside and I said, hey, I need, $100 worth of kerosene. And the guy said, well, we have a maximum of $60. And I was like, oh. But another miracle, I explained, I'm like, hey, we're just trying to get these to some elderly people who need it. He goes, oh, okay. And he upped it to 100. I didn't even ask any questions. It was so strange. Like, that's not happening normally down here. So we went, we delivered those kerosene heaters back to that other church. And then just so happened that they were having a little barbecue supper, and they're like, hey, we've got some food. So we ate there, and we hit like their last 2 meals they had because they were just getting ready to close up for the night. Met some more great people there, and we said, hey, do you have anybody that needs one of these tonight? Because we know it's getting cold. And there was a lady there and said, oh yeah, I know a lady, a widow, who needs one. So I thought that the church that we were at was in the middle of nowhere. Apparently there's more middle of nowhere than the middle of nowhere, which was unbelievable. We drove, I don't know how many miles until we only had Starlink then. There was no cell service. And then finally we turn off on the road, what was supposed to be a road, or what used to be a road. It had been mainly washed out, and one of the bumpiest rides I've ever taken in my life. Probably half a mile or so of that, because it was all been washed out, and big rocks, and having to use 4-wheel drives. The truck was sliding around. and we made it back to this lady's house finally. I mean, it was unbelievable. Um, and we got the heater put together, set up, and put it in, and she was just so grateful. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's been happening, especially for those of you who were able to donate. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Those of you who can donate to places, you'll hear some of these other interviews, or Samaritan's Purse is another great one that's been kind of helping out as well. Some of the generators came from them. But this lady, I said, so when have you been able to get out? She goes, I haven't yet. So she hasn't even, I mean, she can get out of her house, but it's so difficult. You can't leave. You couldn't take a car down that road. It's just impossible. We barely made it with a full-size 2500 Dodge pickup truck. It was crazy. Unreal. Unreal. So she's got no electricity, and like I said earlier, they're saying that maybe some of these people might get electricity by January, but they're saying maybe up to a year in some cases before everything's restored. I asked the same question to her that I ask everybody, because everyone back home wants to know, well, what about FEMA? I said, have you seen FEMA? And she got so mad. She said, no, I've not seen them, and they need to have boots on the ground, and where are they? And they're nowhere. They are nowhere. This is not necessarily the place to blame on them. I'm just saying they are nowhere, and the only way that these people are getting help is through volunteers and through the churches. Just people helping people. That's it. There's no government here to save them. Not coming. Doesn't look like it's coming anyways. And if it is, it's not going to be for a long time. So we can't let these people freeze to death. So we've did what we could in order to get that and get gas to people. So we were out and about all day today. We also did a welfare check on a house, because as we were at the widow's house, a man with a tractor stopped by and he said, hey, I just talked to this lady yesterday or the day before. I don't know if she's okay or not. So we went to the house. There was a tree falling down, and we had forgotten to bring the chainsaw. And for those of you who know me and chainsaws, that might be a good thing. At least I wasn't running one. So we made it up, and that was also washed out. Barely made it up that. And went to the person's house and started knocking on it. We never did get an answer. And we don't know for sure, but two of us, without telling each other, both had a feeling that that person probably did not make it. And we think, we don't know for sure because we didn't go in, but our gut says that they were probably deceased inside the house. There was still a tree down, so the guy with the tractor was going to grade out the drive and then cut the tree out, so that hopefully that person is somewhere, but I'm not sure that they're somewhere. Sorry, there's just been a lot of emotion this week as I watch these people. Just, they didn't have much to begin with, and now some of them have absolutely nothing. Shifting gears, I know I'm really tired, so I'm sorry I'm not telling this story the best that it could be told, but people want to know what the stories are, and they want to know what's been happening, and so I've just been trying to put these out every night. When we're at Pastor Danny's church, he was telling us firsthand accounts that he went down on the bridge, or near a bridge, as the mudslides were happening, the flood was happening, and he just started watching houses slam into the bridge. And he couldn't do anything. He had another pastor friend. I think he said his pastor friend's name was Rick Strickland, but I might be getting that wrong. But this was a direct friend of his, and pastor was on one side of the house, his wife was on the other side of the house, and a mudslide came through, and took her side right in front of him while he watched. And it took his wife. And they finally found her body about 10 miles away. The devastation down here is real. But every person that I've been talking to, my last question to them before anything else is, do you know Jesus? Because each of us is going to reach the end. And for some of us, that was 2 weeks ago. And they didn't know it was coming. And you don't know when it's coming. And if you're not right with Jesus, if you don't know Jesus, ask him into your heart and get to know him, have a relationship with him. That is how your soul will be saved, so that you know that you're going to be with him when all is said and done on this planet. And if I've seen anything this week, that is most important, because you don't know when your last breath will be. I talked to a couple who had a cousin. Cousin's name was Melissa. So Melissa and Jamie apparently have 4 kids, and the house, because of the mudslide, fell onto Melissa and broke her back. And they were able to get her to a hospital, but she didn't make it. And now we've got a single daddy with 4 little babies. It's been a hard week. And these people have to continue living it. I get to go back home to where I've got water and power and my family and my friends. Some of these people don't even get to go back home. Some of them don't have their friends anymore. All these stories are coming to mind. Pastor Danny gave us another story. He runs the Department of Transportation for 7 counties, and you'll hear about that. But 2 things with Pastor Danny. First of all, the guy is amazing. So if you're out there watching this, Pastor Danny, hey, you're awesome, man. And he had their DOT, his county DOT, had just bought a truck to put in signs. He called it a sign truck. And they put an area where they said it's never going to flood there. And so he told his employees, like, hey, just park your stuff up there. It's just not going to flood up there. Well, you flooded up there and took out all the cars. Took out all of them. But I think one of the most fascinating stories from him today was in his DOT office. He had to go back and find his time card. I mean, I guess he still has to turn in his time, apparently. Seems odd, but they had to go back in, and he said he went in, and there's stuff turned everywhere, and things are flooded. There's sort of dried out, but there's mud, and there's stuff over there. And he's looking around, and he finally found it, and he said there was nothing on the ground, nothing anywhere, because it was just mud. I don't even know if he did find his time card, but he left, and then 2 days later he had to come back again, and he showed me this picture. I'm sure I'll get it from him. And he said there was nothing on this floor. He said, because I was looking and looking. And he said 2 days later, nobody had been in there, and there's a Gideon Holy Bible down there on the floor, just laying there. But nobody knows how it got there. I don't know how to explain any of the stuff that I've seen this week except for God. It has been miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle. I've not seen anything like this ever my entire life. it has, if I hadn't seen this myself and experienced it, like, I wouldn't even believe it. And I'm sure I'm not even relaying half of the things that I saw and heard. And man, Pastor Danny's church, I went into their sanctuary, and I'll put a video of this up. Their sanctuary, they turned into a donation center. It was their clothes, because it's getting cold. Their clothes everywhere, all over the sanctuary. And we're like, well, are you going to have church this Sunday? And he goes, we're having church outside. Because they don't have anywhere to have church. Or at least they have the service. They're going to have it outside. And that's happening all over. Apparently, this lady that we took the heat to tonight, that they can't get out really. And so one of the neighbors there, her husband is a pastor. And so they've just been, all the neighbors have been gathering on the front porch and doing church service there, and having lunch and dinner together, because what else are you going to do? And they can't get anywhere. And they said people they'd never known before, now they know. It's fascinating. Fascinating. I mean, this place still has years of fixing up to do. There were Black Hawk helicopters flying over today. There's still helicopters. I thought there were fewer helicopters yesterday, but there seemed to be just as many today. So they're still flying stuff in. In fact, the one area that we went to, where we installed the heater, she had a neighbor who was in the National Guard, and then he relayed to his command that they could use her grass as a helipad, but they haven't yet. They're apparently flying other places, but that's how remote it was where we went to, where they're basically saying, hey, you could have just flown it in. And they got lucky, because if we'd gone a quarter mile up past their road, that road was washed away and you have to go back. If that had been any much closer, we wouldn't have been able to even get to her or the other people that were back there. Starlink has been a godsend. The Pastor Danny, said he had no communications until yesterday, 13 days later, when somebody just dropped off and donated a Starlink to them. Like I said, we mounted one to the truck, so we always had communication, so I could at least text people. I could call people back and forth too. And I was using Starlink more today than my cell phone, because the cell phone service is just not almost non-existent in some places. And so it's just been incredible. Devastation has been incredible, but the bringing together of people has been even more powerful than what the devastation has been. If any of you still feel called to come down here, I would encourage you to do so, because they still need help. They still need help. They still need help distributing. One other thing came to mind today. I came back from one of the runs, and all of a sudden in the distribution center, they were marking stuff on the barcodes on the UPC, and Erin was in there because she was working her butt off. I think she said she walked 7 miles today, going back and forth trying to deliver stuff and unload trucks and things while I was out about trying to get stuff to people. And apparently some people have decided that they would go to donation centers, pick up items, and then try to return them to Walmart, because Walmart is a very large donation center, a donator of supplies and things. So the sheriff came around and said, hey, just make sure that you mark out the barcodes. So now we had to start marking out all the barcodes, because some people are desperate. When I was up at the Neighbors Feeding Neighbors, they've had 2 generators stolen. There are people in areas getting desperate, but for the majority of it, most people are just working together in the community. And you've seen the videos. Every time I ask somebody where's FEMA, and wait till you hear what Pastor Danny has to say. He wasn't trying to be, he wasn't trying to get people in trouble. It's just, they're not here. This guy, he's in charge of 7 counties, for the DOT. He runs the 7 counties, and he's not seen them in 2 of the counties. He can't account for all the rest, but he's not seen them in any of the 2 of the counties he's been in, and no one's contacted him. You would think that the Department of Transportation for the local county would be in touch with FEMA when a disaster like this happens. But apparently the answer is that doesn't happen. I've still not seen one. Still haven't seen one. So it's relying on people. If you feel the need to go, I can get you in touch with people. They still need help. Pastor Bruce down here is I don't know how he's doing it. He's running on fumes. The man's diabetic and has Graves' disease. He's 69 years old, and he's been basically running an operations center out of this place. I don't know how he's been doing it. Unbelievable. And even if you can't throw boxes around, one of the things I've been asking people is, well, what do you tell the people who say, I'm just too old to go, I can't do anything? They said, you know what, you can come down and just listen to people, give them a hug. As I was talking to the one couple I referred to earlier, at the end the lady said, thanks for being our counselor. I'm like, I'm just a guy. But they needed to talk and get it out. And there's just as much emotional damage as there is physical damage and destruction down here. To give you an idea, I was traveling with 2 veterans today. One of them had 18 years on the fire department, and the other one had 54 years on the fire department. And they said, in all our years, we've never seen anything like this. They said some of the stuff kind of prepares us how to act and stuff, but they said we've never seen anything like this. It is devastation beyond belief. But again, I'm filled with hope as I've seen these people come together. It's been amazing. These mountain folk are of a different breed, and they will bring themselves back, and they're doing it. It's impressive. Today, some members from our group were rebuilding the road by putting rocks on it, and it's going to take a long time, but stuff's coming together, and it's important to get together, love one another, and make sure you know Jesus. So that is what has been happening today in Spruce, Pine, and several counties around. I'll be uploading some of those other videos later. God bless y'all. Bye-bye.